What is your job as a producer?
My job as a producer is to leave the world touched, moved, and inspired. Uh, and how that works is that it can be creatively, it can be responsibly in terms of working with a studio or a financier and making sure the creative and the business side gel well. There's constant fires happening before production, in development, in pre-production, production, and post-production. So it's managing those fires, managing expectations, and ultimately, in the beginning, if I'm coming earlier on, is setting the tone for the dynamics of the project, the team, and having a level of clarity. So everyone knows what they're responsible for, what I'm responsible for, and in a sense, it's a marriage when I start on a project because I'm going to be glued to this project for the rest of my life. And I want to make sure that I work with people that like me and I like them, and to have a process where we can all be successful together. The goal is to do that creatively and to do that financially so we can keep making movies, and it's a win for everyone. As a producer, I have to finish a project on time, on budget, and take care of my director. Make sure that he or she feels that they have the proper support, that they feel confident in their job. Sometimes to be a support system in terms of emotional, whatever therapy that is, that's very important, protecting the creative, as well as the talent as well, making sure that they feel good, they know what they need to do, they don't need to worry about anything outside of their performances and their rehearsals. And then the same thing I would say for whoever is backing the movie, whether it's an investor or it's a production company or it's a grant or a program, all of the same things. It's just having a strong line of communication, being detailed, making sure they know that I'm competent and that the team is competent as well.
And has that role, because what I'm hearing from you is that you have a very clear sort of identity as a producer. Was it always that clear for you? Or did each one sharpen you and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that again, or this is who I am in this role?
What I noticed was that there were projects where things went wrong, where I made bad decisions, or other individuals made bad decisions, and going to Q&As for films at festivals or films that are coming out, learning what the filmmakers did, what went wrong, what was right, and how the success came together has helped me figure that out, as well as having a pool of other filmmakers that I trust and like, and I could bounce ideas off of, and hearing their frustrations, where they've gone wrong, their failure, as well as their wins, or when I've had problems along the way, and asking them, what do you think I should do, or how would you handle this? And one of the things I've noticed is that, I would say more towards the last few years, is that it starts at the top. So if you are organized, engaged, and kind, and you set that tone of how you want the production to run, not necessarily it'll be spot on every time, but if you bring in good and kind and hardworking people, it makes the job a little bit easier, and everyone feels that they can communicate and share if there's an issue or problem in their department, or if there's even something outside of the production that's affecting their job. which is important. At the end of the day, we're all humans. And sometimes I feel that productions or people in production forget that. And I don't want to have that energy or reputation to not be mindful of my crew, because without the crew, you have no project. And in terms of the mandate that I've developed in terms of getting behind women and BIPOC and queer, I identify as BIPOC. You know, I'm Haitian American, and there's not a lot of Haitian producers that I know, maybe a handful. And even in the space of people of color, there's not that many. So what I noticed is as I became a producer, I wanted to support projects around people of color, written by people of color or made by people of color. So that was, I wouldn't say natural, that only made sense. And what I'd noticed in my career as well is that how the challenges that I had, my filmmaker friends that happen to be women or young women were having the same challenges. And I found some success with some women-driven projects. And at that point, I said, you know what? I'm gonna make BIPOC stories, get behind BIPOC stories, and female-led stories. And then what occurred was that a lot of my queer friends and colleagues, I noticed that they had a lot of challenges as well. And I wanted to build that into what I make as well. So that's how I kind of found many of the stories that I want to get behind or the people I want to get behind. It happened homeopathically or organically. It wasn't necessarily planned. It just kind of fell into place that way.
And sorry, can you define BIPOC for me, please?
So BIPOC meaning Black, indigenous, people of color. So it could be someone that is West Indian or Caribbean or Cuban, Afro-American, Puerto Rican, Asian, Indian, and I guess anything that's just white for the most part.
And in terms of queer stories, does it always have to be a romance, or it can just be anything about the queer experience in terms of dealing with family, dealing with things in the workplace?
It's fairly open across the board, but what I would say is that if you notice, or the general public notices, a lot of the queer stories are usually about relationship for the most part, or some type of trauma or tragedy. Because even though these stories have been told, they haven't been told enough, kind of like how you always see slave stories being told. You know, it's kind of a reminder, and not necessarily being relevant, but letting people know. So it's an important issue. So most of the queer stories that I've come across deal with those type of problems. They're not just a comedy and we're just happy and just the way it works. I mean, that's realism. So it makes sense, at least for me.
What are the most important skills you have as a producer?
My most important skills would be communication. The communication is the most important, I would say, thing in any relationship, whether it's outside or in, production. And I feel that when I can communicate efficiently with what I'm looking to do or what I can bring to the table, I can manage expectations, and then vice versa. When I'm speaking with a filmmaker or a team or production company, understanding what their process is. I don't want to assume, because then you can miss expectations or let people down. And there's a level of clarity, and it also helps bond with whoever you may be working with. And it also prevents myself from getting on projects that I wouldn't want to be on, or working with people I don't want to work with, because the reality of it is that if they don't communicate at the level that I communicate, It's probably going to be dysfunctional and it's not going to work. I'm going to frustrate them. They're going to frustrate me. And I feel that there's so many projects where I've heard horror stories where things have gone wrong because of bad communication. So that's something that I excel at. If that person or group is not communicating well, I find a way to communicate with them where it's not threatening or just letting them know it's okay. It's a safe place, or we can have a conversation about it. I'm open and willing to hear what the group or company has to share. And that I ask for the same in return. I think it's the most important thing across the board in this business is just clear communication. Outside of the communication, I would say is networking. I've read some great articles, books, stories, and the networking has really opened up opportunities and doors because half the time or half the battle is just showing up. And there's just been so many times in my life, whether in my film life or just life period, just going somewhere just opens up the opportunities. You never know. And it's definitely helped my brand. So people and groups or individuals or companies in the business can be aware. It's kind of like a self-promotion, just getting my name out there and what I work on, what I'm looking to work on, and hearing the same from other filmmakers and individuals, what are their goals, and then seeing if there's a match or a way to work. So yes, networking is probably my second, I'd say, tool in the toolbox. And then probably my third is just attention to detail, just really understanding things, whether it's body language. 80% of communication is body language. Watching a room, that kind of blends into networking. When I go into a room, whatever it is, whether it's in production or not, and I don't know anybody and there's 1,000 people in the room, I'm just watching it and getting a feel for it, getting the energy, the tone. And if I really struggle to figure it out, I'll go to whoever's running the event or whoever's in charge, and I'll ask questions and I'll be very transparent. I'm new to this event. I don't know anyone here. I would like to look for this type of person, or maybe I have a list of names. Do you know what they look like? Or have they checked in? Can you help me? And the reality is that most people would want to help when you come to them and ask them in a nice way. Please and thank you are the two forgotten languages in the English language. So I always make it a point to say please, thank you, because they don't have to do it. And then in terms of paying attention to detail, it's if there's someone that I really want to work with or get to know, I'll do as much research as possible on them and maybe even learn a little bit about their personal life, where they are, family or not family, how they got into the business, what keeps them going per se. Finding that common denominator to break the ice, because that's always the thing. This is the icebreaker. Once I can figure out what that thing is, whether it's they're a diabetic too, we can, they put their guards down and it's like it's another human being, or maybe they're West Indian, they're from one of the countries down there. And we can talk about our experiences being from the West Indies or the Caribbean. It can be anything, but I look for something that's common. I'm a proud and happy BlackBerry user. It is one of my great icebreakers because people that have had BlackBerries in the past, they always reminisce about, oh my God, I remember, and you could see them kind of drift off into their head, and then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you still have it. And we talk about that, and then we go into something else. But that's always been helpful, just the detail to things. And I want to say the average person probably doesn't step back and pay attention to the detail. So when I do, it's acknowledged, and it's appreciated. Uh, and that's been very helpful in the process across the board. And probably the last thing I'd say is, I've heard this a couple of times, read it many times, is, the creator, God, whoever, whatever you want to call it, gave you two ears and a mouth for a reason. So a lot of times when I meet someone or meet people, I'll just listen because I can learn a lot from them about where they are in their life, where they're looking to do, what excites them, what's important. It's not about what's important to me, it's what's important to them. And is there a way I can help or service that? And then it could be a match. And I can also learn that maybe this is not the right person because not everyone is right for me and I'm not right for every person as well. So the listening goes so far. Just being aware, paying attention, using my five senses has helped a lot.
You have a strong sixth sense too?
Yes, I am very spiritual. I love meditating. It took me a while to get to the point where the level of meditation I do now, because I meditate for the most part every day. And it could be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or half an hour. And I'm in groups of meditation groups. So I trust my intuition. I trust myself. And I want to say majority of the time your intuition is right. So I'm just comfortable with myself and sense of being and understanding, and read many books around spirituality. I dabbled with Buddhism a while back. I looked at other religions. But at the end of the day, I feel that we're all the same. That's one of the things I realized traveling to different cities around the country or outside of the country, is that we all want the same thing. We all want food. Everyone loves food and they're excited about their food or their background. And we love having meals and talking about deals or celebrations over a meal. Everyone wants shelter. Well, most people want shelter, I want to say, and that's important. And for your mental health, that's very important. You need to know where you're living and where you're going to be. And then everyone wants some level of love, whatever that is, or to be loved or to be cared for. Even the hermit or the person that is full of hate, the hate comes from it's the person that has the most hate needs the most love. And that may not make sense, or may be hard to get that, but right now we are in this weird space because of COVID and the pandemic and what's happening overseas. And these people, I don't agree with what they're doing. And maybe their insensitivity, but it's not coming out of the air. It's not that they just got up one day and I want to take over a country, or I want to scream at someone because, they're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or, they're telling me to, take a vaccine or not. What has occurred is that they have their inner problems and demons, and they don't know how to manage it, or they don't know how to communicate. And this is how they communicate with, doing something that doesn't make sense, and hurting other people when they themselves are hurting inside.